Today, I'm going to go over how lenders look at and assess your business and personal credit when you make a business financing application. As a business owner or manager, it's always important to remember that an essential element of the business financing process is credit assessment. Credit review is also a character assessment. So, when you apply for business financing and a lender is trying to decide if they're going to grant you an approval or decline your request, a big part of it is going to be looking at your character and your ability to make your payments, honor your commitments, and be responsible with any credit that they grant you. So one of the big ways that they make that determination is by looking at your credit. So on the personal side, in Canada, there are two credit reporting agencies, Equifax and TransUnion. There's also credit reporting agencies, Borrowell and Credit Karma. I guess they're not really agencies, but they're companies that provide free credit reports. Borrowell gets their information from Equifax. Credit Karma gets their information from TransUnion. So while it's okay to use the free credit reporting services, they do provide value. It's important to know that Equifax and TransUnion don't necessarily provide all the information they're reporting about you that a lender would see in the Borrowell and Credit Karma reports. It's not a bad idea to pay $20 to $30 or whatever they're going to charge you for a month of access, Equifax and TransUnion, that is, to see what they're showing in their systems. And then the rest of the time, you can use Borrowell and Credit Karma at no cost to monitor your personal credit. When you think of your personal credit, you're basically looking at two components, your credit score and your credit history. So a credit score ranges from 300 to 850. So if you have virtually no reported credit, you'd have a score of 300. And if you have perfect credit, the highest score you can attain is 850. The credit history is relevant as well because you can have a high score, but a very weak credit history, meaning that maybe your credit is very immature. You only have had reported credit for 3 or 4 or 5 years. So you may have a high score, but you have very little credit being reported and very little activities. So a lender is going to look at both your credit score and your credit history when they're assessing your credit responsibility. Credit reports are largely driven by the activity generated through credit cards and lines of credit. This is because typically everybody has a credit card that has any type of significant credit score, and credit cards and lines of credit are typically provided through banks and credit unions. And these are all large entities that all report their activity to their credit reporting agencies. If information isn't reported by a lender, then it doesn't impact your score. You can have all sorts of loans that you're making regular payments on, but if they're not being reported to the credit reporting agencies, then it's not going to show up in your score. So not all asset-based lending gets reported, so therefore, it doesn't become part of your credit history. The other significant part of your credit is maintaining a good credit score. The things that bring it down are what we call negative items or derogatories. You can break these down into 6 categories: high utilization, late payments, collections, suits, judgments, and bankruptcies. High utilization is basically when whatever credit is being reported to you, the amount that's available to you, how much of it are you utilizing on an average basis? So if you have $50,000 of available credit in credit cards and lines of credit, and you're using $40,000 of it on a regular basis, you would have high utilization, and that would push down your credit score. Conversely, if you had $50,000 reported credit and you're using $10,000 on an average basis, you would have low utilization, and that would benefit you in terms of your credit score. Late payments are one of the things that hurt you the most. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 points comes off your credit score every time you have a registered late payment. Now, late payments don't mean 1 day late. Late payments mean you're more than 30 days late. So you have to be significantly late for this to show up as a derogatory item. And not only does it affect your score, but it shows up in your credit history for years. So even though the score may rebound, you're still going to have the notation in the credit report that you were late at this point in time with a particular lender. Collections are another one that impact the score a lot. They kind of fall into two groups the way I look at it. They're basically trivial collections and more significant collections. So trivial collections, which are pretty common, are when people get out of their last telephone contract or mobile phone contract, and somehow there's some breakage cost or final payment amount or some kind of fee that gets charged. say it's 20 bucks, 100 bucks, 150 bucks, whatever it is, the phone companies automatically just send this to a collection agency, and the first thing they do is they register it on your credit reports. Lenders don't tend to take these very seriously, but it still affects your score. All other collections where there's some responsibility you've had to make a payment and you didn't, and somebody's taken a collection action against you, hurts your score, and it shows up in the collection records. And they are taken very seriously by lenders because, again, this whole process of looking at your credit is to judge credit responsibility. Suits, judgments, and bankruptcies, they're all listed. They all have damaging effects to your credit and are things that you certainly don't want to have on there if you can all avoid them. Similar to personal credit, business credit comes from a lot of the same sources. Equifax and TransUnion both provide business credit reports. Equifax also has a PayNet platform. Dun & Bradstreet provides their own reports. There's likely others. A lot of major lenders have their own reporting systems that maybe draw from these and draw from their own databases. But they're going to use some type of third-party reporting and internal reporting to assess business credit. For business credit, you can boil down what's important to 4 things. They're going to look at your payment history, the amount of credit being reported, your utilization levels, and the derogatory items, all similar to what we talked about with personal credit. So as a business owner or manager, one question you should periodically ask yourself, is your publicly reported personal and business credit accurate? Most people assume that whatever's in their credit reports is accurate. That may be the case. There's a lot of reports I've seen over the last 10 years that say that anywhere from 30 to 70% of all personal and business credit reports have errors in them. So where do errors come from? Well, the source of the information to start with comes from lenders. Lenders have large data files that they'll send to the credit reporting agencies, and that information is uploaded into the credit reporting agency's database. They have an algorithm that works through it and uses that information to assess your credit score at any particular point in time. The credit reporting agency's system can make errors. The lenders can have errors in their systems. This could be clerical errors, information that didn't get updated, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if it flows through and it hits your credit reports, then it's going to affect you. When a lender views the credit reports, they assume it's accurate and correct. So it's important that you understand what's showing up in these credit reports because it can directly impact your ability to locate and secure and get funded for business financing. So an obvious action item here is to periodically access all available credit reports on yourself and your business and review for accuracy. If you find mistakes, then you're going to have to go back to the lenders to potentially correct them and the credit reporting agencies to report them. This can be a very frustrating and time-consuming process, but well worth it if in the end errors do get removed and you benefit from that by having better reported credit. And as a point of emphasis, I'd like to stress that your reported credit is a valuable asset to you that can provide tremendous access to capital and directly impact rates and terms during your entire lifetime. So if you're going to be in business for 10, 20, 50 years, there's a good chance that credit is going to come into play and your ability to access capital when you need it for terms and conditions that are acceptable to you are going to matter. So maintaining this as an asset and keeping it in its best possible condition can have tremendous benefit to you over your lifetime. So let's say you find out you have some derogatory items on your credit report that you may or may not have been aware of. The first thing is make sure you understand exactly what they are, the circumstances, the people involved, the amounts that are being reported, when they're being reported. Second thing is work to eliminate them if you can. So if they're mistakes, then the mistakes need to be corrected. If they're things like trivial collections or other collections, whether reasonable or unreasonable, you have to decide if you can settle them off so that they can be removed from your credit or show up as settled and have that positively impact your credit score going forward. Sometimes there's no way to get rid of a derogatory item. Even if you think it's unfair, it's still a cost of doing business, and it may be better to eliminate it through settlement or payment than it is to leave it there unattended and just let it continually eat at your credit report. It's important if you apply for business financing that if there are derogatory items on your personal or business credit, that you have supporting information to explain it and show why it occurred and what you've done about it. The backstory, circumstances, and actions related to a derogatory item can matter tremendously when applying for business financing. And I even go one step further to say that if you have derogatory items, it's always better to proactively talk about them to a lender versus them finding out from them on a credit report themselves and then making assumptions about what they're all about. Many times, a lender's not going to ask you why you had this derogatory issue or try to give you the benefit of the doubt. They're processing so many files that when they see derogatory items, in many cases, they just create an automatic decline and they don't even tell you why they did it in many cases. Or if they said it was because of derogatory items, they're already moved on. If you provide an explanation, you're unlikely to change their minds. This video is specific to a credit assessment for a business financing application for SMEs or small and medium-sized enterprises. So we have a credit review process, and then we have two buckets of information that a lender can view. They can look at the business credit that we've talked about and the personal credit that we've gone over. When we're talking about what is an SME, so there are a lot of definitions. This is the definition I use. They're less than 500 employees and they have less than $50 million in gross revenue. For SMEs, there are three predominant business structures. Your business can be a sole proprietorship, can be a partnership, or it can be a corporation. If it's a sole proprietorship, there's a single owner and the business and personal credit are one and the same. If you're a partnership, you have two owners. You could have developed business credit and you also have the personal credit of the individual owners. For a corporation, you're going to have one shareholder or multiple shareholders, depending on how many shareholders own the common shares of the business. So in all these cases, the available credit to the lender is based on the structure and the ownership contingent of the business that's held personally. To this point in time, I've talked a lot about personal and business credit, and I'm also talking about a credit review for a business financing application. With larger businesses, the business financing review process of credit may only focus on reported business credit, as long as there's enough of it. As businesses get smaller, a lot of times they have very little or no reported business credit, and as a result, lenders have to focus on the individual credit as well as the business credit. So it's a function of how much business credit is available. It's not an automatic that they're going to look at your personal credit, but if they need to, they certainly will. Here I've outlined 4 focus areas. So the obvious one would be acquire more reporting credit. As we said, large amounts of reporting credit are lines of credit and credit cards. Getting an additional credit card, getting a credit card limit increase, getting an additional line of credit or a line of credit limit increase are all things that will increase your available credit and improve your credit score. A lot of people think that, okay, I have 4 credit cards and I hardly use this one, so I'm going to cancel it. If you cancel a credit card, you have reduced the amount of available credit you have, and therefore there's a good chance your utilization will now go up because whatever you're spending, it's applied against less available credit and it'll reduce your credit score. So more reported credit is better than less. Number 2, maintain less than 50% utilization of revolving credit. And this doesn't mean every single month, but on a rolling basis over several months and your average year, if you're using less than 50% of your revolving credit on average, your credit report isn't going to be penalized for that, or there's not going to be any significant derogatory effect of that. Number 3, pretty obvious one, but make your payments on time. As I mentioned, even when you get hit with a late payment, you have to be more than 30 days late. So it's important you have lots of time to kind of hit that bullseye of payment deadline. And if you are a little bit late, you're not penalized for that. So it's just to make sure that the payments actually get done within that 30-day of due date buffer period. And the fourth one, minimize the number of inquiries. Now, this is one where people sometimes take it too far, that they really are paranoid about any inquiries. And so there's a happy medium here. So credit is an asset. It's a tool that's there for you to use, and you use it to access capital. So you need to have inquiries to be able to do that. And the credit reporting agency algorithms are designed to identify buying events. So if you're trying to buy a piece of equipment or a piece of real estate, and there's several inquiries within a very short period of time, they recognize that as a buying event, and it has very minimal impact on your credit score. Occasional inquiries, I always say like a handful of inquiries through the year, are not going to have that big of an effect on the score either. What has an effect is if you're constantly applying for credit. If lenders see somebody who's habitually looking for credit, it shows all the inquiries, the commercial inquiries show up on the credit report, and they see all that when they pull your credit. That's the thing they get most worried about. Plus, they can see where you've applied for credit too. So if they're in the same category as someone else in the marketplace, and you've been to 4 or 5 other lenders before you've come to them, they're wondering, okay, did you get declined by them? Why are you coming to me? Do you already have an offer in hand? Am I wasting my time looking at your report and your application? So the inquiries can have both a score and a perception issue that you have to be careful with. So the last thing I want to talk about is my suggested best practice or best practices. First of all, we've already talked about this bit, but pay attention to your personal and business credit. You need to know what's in them, what's being reported, if there are any errors in it, if there's things you need to improve. Number two, work to correct any errors. There's some real big benefits to this. Number one, you correct errors, your score is going to go up. Number two, errors aren't there. So when a lender pulls your report and sees the information that's negatively impacted by errors, they don't know the errors. They just know that there's stuff on there that says that you're not as responsible as you say you are. And so that has a negative impact to your application. And the third point I can't emphasize enough. You should never apply for business financing without knowing what the lender will see in your credit profiles. If there's errors in your profile, a lender doesn't know their errors. They assume everything is accurate and up to date. If there are negative things that actually reflected situations that you've been in, they need to have an explanation from you proactively about what that's about, because hearing your side of the story proactively can certainly benefit you. If you don't do that, then they're left to make their own assumptions, and that not necessarily is going to work in your favor. So that's a quick review of the credit assessment process for a business financing application. As a business owner or manager, it's important to make sure that your credit information, both personally and on a business level, is accurately reported in the public record, and you're up to date on what is being reported on your behalf. Thank you for your time and attention, and I wish you all the luck with your business financing endeavors. Take care.